Welcome back to the channel, my friends. Warhammer Man Studios. I'm Warhammer Man, and today we're taking a look at Eldritch Manifestations and Faction Terrain. This video is sponsored by CMO Games. More on that later. Clash with Eldritch Manifestations and demolish Faction Terrain in new AOS. Prepare to witness the battlefields of Age of Sigmar come alive like never before. In the upcoming edition, endless spells and invocations will surge across the fray, moving, fighting, and charging with the ferocity of mighty units, while armies lay siege to the enemy's faction terrain. Alright, so we got some new rules for the new AOS pertaining to the faction terrain and Eldritch Manifestations. So here we see a few of the current manifestations. Purple Sun, obviously the most notable of them. Very powerful, endless spells currently in the edition, so curious to see where they'll go with this. So far, I have really liked all the changes and improvements that they've been making to AOS. Definitely reminds me of like the whole push for like simplified, not simple type thing going on with 40k. And I have to say 10th edition has been the best edition. They took a ton of stuff from AOS to make 40k 10th edition so good. And now we're seeing them do the same thing, pulling back some of those awesome improvements from 40k and then reinventing them into Sigmar. One of the core designs philosophized behind the latest edition of Warhammer Age of Sigmar is to have fewer separate systems to learn, but more tactical choices available within each system. This has had a particularly big impact on endless spells and invocations, collectively referred to as manifestations, as well as faction terrain features. And that is another unique thing about the Age of Sigmar that I really enjoy is the faction terrain features. They kind of like half-heartedly did it in 40k, but it just never quite worked because you had to pay points for them and they were never particularly great. As where in AOS, they're actually free and then they provide some abilities, so there's no reason not to take them. Summoning manifestations. As mentioned in our previous article, manifestations have now been grouped into thematic lores, and you will be able to pick up one of these lores alongside your spell lore and prayer lore when building your army roster. Each manifestation lore provides spells or prayers which allow you to summon the manifestations in that lore. Factions which have their own unique manifestation lore can choose to pick that lore for their army. Alternatively, an army, even those with the unique manifestation lore, can pick one of the following universal manifestation lores. So you have like a faction manifestation lore, or you can pick just like the generic manifestation lore. So we have the universal manifestation lore, Forbidden Power. We have the Shards of Valagar, Lucan the Soul Seeker, Orrugast, and the Soul Scream Bridge. And then we have the universal manifestation lore, Morbid Conjuration, which has the Purple Sun of Shaiish, Suffocating Gravetide, Malevolent Maelstrom, Soul Snare Shackles. And then we have one more universal, Aetherwrought Machineries, Chronomatic Cogs, Quicksilver Swords, and the Aether Void Pendulum. And then again, universal, we have the Primal Energy, Burning Head, Emerald Life Swarm, and Ravenex Gnashing Jaws. And then we have one more universal, the Twilight Sorceries, Umbral Spell Portal, Geminids of Ulgush, and the Prismatic Palisades. And then last but not least for the universals, we have the Kronspine Incarnate. So very cool. We definitely see they have broken these down into like some various sets. We don't know what's going to be great in the new edition. We don't know what the rules are going to be. But if we assume that they're going to be similar to what they are now, we'll notice that there's at least like one of the notable, very powerful manifestations in each of these groups. So very cool. Obviously, if you take the Kronspine Incarnate, you're very limited to just that. But we know the Incarnate currently is just absolutely amazing. And then again, just depending on what you're trying to do, the Soul Scream Bridge is great for like mobility with the teleportation ability. The Purple Sun is absolutely amazing, essentially debuffing anything nearby. We know the Quicksilver Swords and some of these other ones are notable for like their mortal wounds and big damage. Of course, like the Gnashing Jaws. I mean, this is just great. I like how they have broken this down. And then, of course, you'll have access to all of the faction-specific manifestation lores as well. Very, very cool. Definitely a big fan of this. Now a quick message from today's sponsor. CMO Games has been selling Games Workshop products online for over 20 years. They carry the full line of Games Workshop products, including Warhammer 40,000, Age of Sigmar, necromunda, Blood Bowl, paint tools, and more. Almost all Games Workshop products are priced at 15% off MSRP. CMO Games takes pre-orders for most Games Workshop products released at their earliest date possible. 12:01 a.m. on Saturday, they go live. Most of these pre-order products are also priced at 15% off MSRP. CMO Games offer free shipping in the US 48 with an order of $50 or more. Their customer service is top-notch and they ship most orders within 24 hours. Visit CMOGames.com using the affiliate link in the description and let them know that you heard about CMO Games from Warhammer Man. Now back to the video. Alright, so our next section, interacting with manifestations. For the most part, manifestations now work in much the same way as units, which offers more counterplay than ever before. This is immediately apparent when you take a look at the manifestation war scroll. Okay, so we see they have a move, health, save, and then banishment. So the actual Quicksilver Blade is the melee weapon, 12 attacks, hit 3+, wound 3+, rend 1, damage 1, crit mortal. And then the passive ability is Dancing Blades effect. Ward rolls cannot be made for damage points inflicted by the manifestation's attacks. Okay, so very cool. I really like how they have done this. So it has a health so you can actually fight it theoretically, and then it also has a banishment score so you can basically dispel it. The first thing you'll notice is the manifestation war scroll resembles regular unit war scrolls far more than ever before. They can now move, charge, attack, take damage, and use abilities in much the same manner as units. So if you can't banish those Quicksilver swords, you can send a monster to bat them down, or a unit to shoot them from a safe distance. Though similar to units, manifestations aren't exactly going to listen to commands from a nearby hero, and their shimmering magical nature leads to some key rules differences. Additionally, some manifestations, such as the Prismatic Palisade, have a move characteristic of dash, and so don't threaten the movement of enemy units around them. So all manifestations. Models can move through manifestations but cannot end a move on them. Units can finish a charge move within half inch of them, and they can be picked as a target of enemy abilities like shoot or fight. Manifestations can be damaged or destroyed, but don't count as destroyed unit for battle tactics or abilities. Manifestations can only use core abilities or abilities on their war scroll. They cannot use commands or be affected by friendly abilities unless they specifically affect manifestations. And manifestations cannot control or contest objectives. And then moving manifestations, you'll typically need to set up 9 inches away from them and will need to retreat to move out of combat. Typically cannot be set up within 9 inches of enemy units when summoned and cannot move in the movement phase after being set up. So similar like deep strike type rules from 40k. And then static manifestations, you can ignore them when setting up units. You can end a move within 3 inches of them, and you can freely move away from them. You cannot use any abilities that involve moving, and typically have more freedom to place them when summoned. Okay, so the moving manifestations are like ones that are active during battle. The static manifestations are basically cast on a point. They have less of the actual like casting restrictions, but then they stay in that place, aka they're static. So very, very cool. Alright, so static manifestations. While some endless spells roam across the battlefield destroying their enemies, others provide a powerful effect to those around them, such as the Prismatic Palisade, which can help shield your units against shooting attacks. So we have health 8, move dash, save 4+, banishment 7+. Prismatic Palisade, passive, blinding light. Effect, this manifestation cannot be targeted by shooting attacks. In addition, a unit cannot be targeted by shooting attacks if it is impossible to draw a straight line from a model in the attacking unit to a model in the target unit without the line passing across the manifestation. So they basically block all shooting and cannot be shot themselves. So very powerful defense against shooting. Very cool. Alright, and then moving on from manifestations to faction terrain features. The same logic that applies to manifestations also extends to faction terrain features. Like manifestations, these terrain features also have health and save characteristics and can be targeted by enemy attacks such as well-aimed cannonball to demolish them. Alright, so we have the Fyreslayer's War Scroll, Magmic Battleforge. Move dash, health 8, save 3+, and control dash. And it has a couple keywords, cover, impassable, and obscuring. So once per battle, army ability, your hero phase, spending the forge. Declare, pick a friendly Fyreslayer priest within the terrain feature's combat range to expand the power of the forge. Effect, heal a d3 to each friendly Fyreslayer unit on the battlefield. Once this ability has been used, this terrain feature cannot use the Molten Blessing ability for the rest of the battle. Okay, so very cool, but by expending this big ability right here, which is once per game, you also expend the Molten Blessing, which is the start of any turn. Molten Blessing, declare, pick a friendly Fyreslayer priest within the terrain feature's combat range to be the target. Effect, add 1 to chanting rolls for the target for the rest of the turn. In addition, the target can use the Unbind ability this turn as if it had Wizard 1. So very cool. It has like a regular buff that you can use every turn, and then it has a like one-time expenditure, but that also stops you from using the regular buff for the rest of the game. Like static manifestations, faction terrain features don't threaten units around them, so they can freely move up to and away from them, unless you have a hero place on them. For example, in the case of the Skull Altar, some rare faction terrain features can even move or fight. Stay tuned for faction focus articles to learn more. Of course, faction terrain is particularly important for some factions, such as Sylvaneth. These factions now have new abilities to summon additional terrain features throughout the battle, such as the Sylvaneth Unlimited Spell Tree Song. So your hero phase, Lord of the Deepwood Tree Song. Declare, pick a friendly Sylvaneth wizard to cast this spell and make a casting roll of 2d6. And we have a 6 up in the right hand corner. Effect, if you are fewer than 3 friendly Awakened Wildwoods on the battlefield, you can set up an Awakened Wildwood wholly within 18 of the caster and more than 3 inches from all enemy units, objectives, and other terrain features. If there are already 3 friendly Awakened Wildwoods on the battlefield, heal 3 to each friendly Awakened Wildwood. So very cool. You're basically going to be able to continually cast this on a regular to keep up at least 3 of your wildwoods. And then if you already have 3, you'll be able to heal your existing wildwoods. And obviously we know that you can basically like cast spells, move around, do all kinds of like cool stuff through these wildwoods. All in all, manifestations and faction terrain features are now much more integrated into the core game mechanics and are involved in nearly every phase of the game. You'll also have more counterplay than ever to deal with these threats, instead of being restricted to just banishing them with your wizards or priests. Join us the rest of the week as we'll be covering Spearhead, the fast, fun, and tactical new mode for play, Warhammer Age of Sigmar, that is perfect for veterans and new players alike. So very cool. Definitely a huge fan of this. I love that they are increasing the interaction between the faction terrain and then also the manifestations. Everything sounds really good so far. I'm getting more and more excited for this. And honestly, I'm really looking forward to seeing what they have in mind for Spearhead and what's going to be going on exactly with that. If it's going to be very similar to Combat Patrol, as Combat Patrol has been a load of fun and a great way to introduce new players to the game. So let me know what you're most excited about. What do you think of the rules so far? Always like to hear back from you guys in the comments. Special thanks to CMO Games for sponsoring the channel. Check out the link in the description to save 15% on Games Workshop products. That's it for today. Warhammer Man Studios. I'm Warhammer Man, and they are knocking it out of the park with the new AOS rules so far. And I'm out of here.